There comes a moment in life when you've tried everything, every plan, every method, every desperate reach to make life bend your way, and yet nothing moves. You feel the resistance of the world pressing back against your will. In that silence, an ancient truth whispers, "Do nothing strange, isn't it? To do nothing when everything seems to demand action. To remain still when the world glorifies motion. But perhaps the very reason your world is not aligning is because you're forcing it to. The human soul was never designed to be a machine of endless striving. When you chase control, you create chaos. When you clutch too tightly, you crush what you're trying to hold. The moment you release your grip, something begins to breathe again. Your soul, your path, your destiny. You see, life is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a rhythm to be remembered. When you stop fighting against it, you begin to hear it again, the subtle pulse beneath all things. The mind becomes quiet, the heart receptive. And in that stillness, the world starts to rearrange itself around you. Do nothing and watch how the truth comes closer. The right people appear. The right moments unfold, the right opportunities seem to find you. It isn't magic, and it is alignment. When your inner state ceases to battle the universe, you fall back into its current. And that current was always leading you home. It takes courage to do nothing. Not the nothing of apathy, but the sacred stillness of trust. It is an act of rebellion against the chaos of modern existence. It is the decision to stop playing God and start becoming human again. When you finally stop trying to control everything, you discover that everything was never against you. It was simply waiting for you to be still enough to receive it. So sit in your silence. Let the noise fall away. Do nothing. And watch how everything begins to fall perfectly into place. There is a paradox that few truly understand, the paradox of stillness. The idea that doing nothing, that ceasing the restless movement of the ego, could actually become the most transformative act of all. We are raised to believe that change comes only through effort, that movement equals progress, that the louder we shout at life, the more it listens. But there comes a moment when the soul grows weary of noise, when every attempt to fix, to chase, to control begins to feel like sand slipping through one's fingers. That is the moment when stillness becomes not an absence of action, but the beginning of real power. The modern mind is obsessed with motion. We are taught to pursue, to conquer, to constantly do. Yet this very compulsion fragments the psyche. The more we run towards something, the further we move from our own center. Stillness is not about passivity. It is about returning to that center, to that unmoving core within you where everything begins and ends. When you stand there, you begin to sense the deeper order behind the chaos of your life. You see that your struggles were not random. They were mirrors of your own inner unrest. Every time you push against life, you are in truth pushing against yourself. The universe mirrors the state of your mind. A turbulent inner world creates outer resistance, while inner calm begins to dissolve obstacles almost mysteriously. The secret lies not in doing more, but in ceasing to do what fragments your energy, ceasing the endless inner conflict between what you are and what you think you should be. When the psyche quiets, the unconscious begins to speak. This is the point where true change begins, not from ambition or external control, but from the subtle alchemy between awareness and surrender. The unconscious does not reveal its wisdom to a restless mind. It requires stillness, patience, and trust. The more we chase meaning, the more it retreats. But when we stop chasing, meaning comes to us uninvited, quietly, like dawn light seeping through a window. Think of it this way. When a pond is disturbed, the water becomes muddy, and you cannot see its depths. But if you stop stirring it, if you let it be, the sediment settles and the water becomes clear. Life works in the same way. The more you meddle, the more distorted your vision becomes. The more you allow, the clearer things appear. This is not mysticism, it is psychology. It is the science of alignment between the conscious and unconscious forces within you. Even desire, that most potent of human energies, sexual, creative, emotional, obeys this law. When desire is suppressed, it festers. When it is recklessly indulged, it dissipates. But when it is observed without grasping, it transforms. The energy of desire, when met with still awareness, becomes fuel for creation, for self-realization. It is the same life force that builds galaxies, waiting to be integrated into consciousness. Stillness, therefore, is not about denial. It is about refinement. It is the space where passion becomes purpose, where chaos becomes clarity, and where the external world begins to reorganize itself around your new inner vibration. The greatest transformations occur not when we manipulate life, but when we let it breathe through us. To do nothing, in its highest sense, means to stop interfering with the natural unfolding of your own becoming. It means allowing the deeper intelligence of life to do its work. This requires trust, a trust that feels unbearable at first, because it demands the death of control. The ego fears this silence because it cannot dominate it. Yet, the moment you allow yourself to rest in that silence, you begin to touch something eternal, something within you that was never lost. Only buried under the noise of your striving, there is a strange beauty that follows this surrender. You start to notice synchronicities, coincidences that feel too precise to be random. You meet people who seem to appear at exactly the right time. Obstacles that once felt immovable begin to dissolve quietly, almost effortlessly. What is happening is not magic. It is resonance. When your inner world becomes coherent, the outer world reflects it. Life begins to move with you instead of against you. But make no mistake, this kind of stillness is not easy. It requires immense discipline to do nothing in a world addicted to doing. It means confronting your own impatience, your fear of silence, your need for control. It means trusting that even when nothing seems to be happening, everything necessary is already unfolding beneath the surface. And that is the ultimate test of faith, not faith in a distant deity, but faith in the intelligence of your own existence. To sit quietly in the midst of uncertainty and know without proof that life is moving in your favor. The paradox of stillness is that by ceasing to chase life, you finally allow life to find you. When you stop grasping, you begin to receive. When you stop forcing, you begin to flow. The universe does not respond to panic. It responds to presence. So if you find yourself exhausted from striving, stop. Just stop. Withdraw from the noise, return to yourself and listen. In that silence, you will not find emptiness, you will find direction. And perhaps then you will understand. Doing nothing was never about inaction. It was about remembering that the deepest movement of all begins in stillness. When the inner world settles, the outer world begins to rearrange itself in ways that logic cannot explain. It is not coincidence. It is correspondence. Everything outside you is a mirror of what is happening within. When the unconscious and the conscious mind are in conflict, life becomes a battlefield. But when these two dimensions begin to align, reality starts to flow with a kind of quiet intelligence that feels almost supernatural. Most people live as if their lives are happening to them, as if they are at the mercy of circumstances, luck, or fate. Yet they fail to see that their external world is only a projection of their internal one. The outer chaos is born from inner fragmentation, the repeating patterns in relationships, the recurring disappointments, the unseen resistance. All of it reflects the state of the psyche. Life is not punishing you. It is showing you where you are not yet whole. The unconscious mind is vast, far greater than the rational surface we identify as I. It holds instincts, memories, desires, fears, and potentials we've forgotten. When ignored, it manipulates the stage of our lives from behind the curtain, turning us into actors repeating the same emotional scripts again and again. But when we begin to listen, truly listen, something extraordinary happens. The unconscious stops acting as an enemy and becomes a guide. It reorganizes the outer world in harmony with your inner clarity. This is why inner alignment is not a poetic metaphor. It is a psychological necessity. When your inner and outer realities are at odds, you live in tension. The conscious mind says, I want peace, while the unconscious holds on to conflict. You say, I want love, but secretly fear intimacy. You desire success, yet believe you are unworthy of it. The result is friction, not only within you, but in every external circumstance. The world becomes a reflection of that tension, mirroring back to you the dissonance you carry inside. The process of alignment begins when you stop denying what lives within you. Every emotion you repress, every desire you judge, every wound you refuse to acknowledge continues to shape your outer life. Suppressed energy does not disappear. It transmutes into events, into people, into repeated situations meant to draw your attention back to the forgotten parts of yourself. This is the psyche's way of seeking integration. There is also a deeper law at work, the law of resonance. You attract not what you wish for, but what you are in vibrational harmony with. A peaceful mind attracts peace. A fragmented soul draws chaos. The unconscious continuously communicates with the outer world through synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that defy rational explanation. They are signs that the inner and outer realms are speaking the same language again. This harmony is most visible in moments of silence, in the spaces where desire softens and control loosens. When you stop interfering with the natural rhythm of life, the unconscious begins to reorganize itself around balance. That balance radiates outward, shaping how people perceive you, how opportunities find you, and how events unfold. What was once resistance begins to feel like flow. What once seemed impossible begins to happen naturally without effort. The same is true of desire, especially sexual and creative energy, which are deeply entwined. When this energy is repressed, it leaks out in distorted forms: obsession, anxiety, restlessness, addiction. When it is overindulged without consciousness, it depletes the psyche. But when it is integrated, acknowledged, honored, and redirected, it becomes the force that aligns the inner and outer worlds. It is the same energy that animates all of existence. When it is in harmony within you, it harmonizes everything around you. This is not mysticism. It is psychology in motion. The unconscious shapes perception, and perception shapes reality. Change your inner frequency, and the entire world changes its behavior toward you. People respond differently. Doors open that once remained shut. Opportunities align as if choreographed by an unseen intelligence. And the most astonishing part is that it does not come through effort. It comes through coherence. When the inner world finds its center, the outer world no longer needs to scream to get your attention. Conflict, delay, heartbreak. These experiences lose their hold because their purpose was always to awaken you to misalignment. Once you see this clearly, you stop reacting to the surface of life and begin communicating with its deeper structure. You start to recognize that reality is alive, not a collection of random events, but a living mirror responding to the state of your being. This understanding demands responsibility. It means that to change your life, you must first be willing to face yourself, your shadows, your fears, your desires, your contradictions. This is the true work of transformation. Most people try to rearrange the outer furniture of their lives while leaving the foundation untouched. But life will not cooperate with half-truths. It mirrors not your intentions but your essence. As your inner world becomes integrated, a profound calm begins to emerge. You stop rushing toward the future because you realize that what you seek is already within you, waiting for alignment to make itself visible. The need to control dissolves, replaced by a quiet confidence that everything external will find its right place in due time. You begin to live not reactively but responsively, moving with the current of life rather than against it. This is what it means for everything to fall into place. Not by manipulation, not by control, but by resonance. The outer world rearranges itself to match the order of your inner world. When there is peace within, there is peace without. When there is love within, love surrounds you. When there is coherence within, even chaos begins to serve your growth. So before you chase another dream, fix another situation, or blame another circumstance, pause. Look inward. Ask yourself what in you needs alignment, what truth you have been avoiding. Because the moment you return to inner harmony, the world will follow. The greatest illusion of the modern mind is control, the belief that through sheer force of will, one can command the direction of life. This illusion has built empires and destroyed souls. It is the quiet disease of our time, the unrelenting need to dictate outcomes, to dominate the unknown, to script reality according to our narrow understanding of what should be. But beneath this obsession lies a truth most people cannot bear to face. Control is the child of fear. We try to control because we do not trust. We do not trust life, we do not trust others, and most painfully, we do not trust ourselves. Control is the armor we wear to protect the fragile ego from the vast unpredictability of existence. Yet that same armor, which promises safety, becomes the prison of the soul. The tighter you hold the reins, the more you suffocate the living force within you. The more you manipulate, the less alive you feel. The psyche, like nature, follows its own rhythm. It does not bend to the will of impatience or demand. When you try to control its unfolding, through repression, denial, or rigid self-definition, you create internal tension. That tension manifests outwardly as conflict, exhaustion, or perpetual dissatisfaction. It is why some people, despite immense effort, remain trapped in cycles of failure or loneliness. Their conscious will is at war with the deeper intelligence of their being. True transformation cannot be forced, because the unconscious cannot be bullied. It yields only to awareness, not control. When you insist that life follow your script, you separate yourself from the creative flow that moves through all things. The conscious mind becomes tyrannical, and in its tyranny it loses touch with the greater order of the psyche. That is when anxiety is born, the body's alarm that you have strayed too far from the natural current of your existence. Control is, in essence, resistance, and what you resist persists. You cannot control your emotions without them mutating into new forms of suffering. You cannot control love without it turning into possession. You cannot control desire without it turning into shame. The energy that is repressed in one place always reappears elsewhere, often darker and more demanding. This is the law of psychic compensation. Every act of control creates imbalance, and the unconscious seeks to restore it, often through crisis or breakdown. Even in the realm of sexuality, the illusion of control creates distortion. The more one tries to dominate or suppress sexual energy, the more it rebels. It does not disappear. It hides, reshaping itself into anxiety, aggression, or addiction. But when you release control, when you approach desire with awareness rather than repression or indulgence, that same energy transforms into vitality, creativity, and spiritual clarity. What once enslaved you begins to liberate you. Life itself mirrors this principle. The universe operates through harmony, not domination. The seasons change without your permission. The heart beats without your command, and the stars move in silence, unconcerned with your expectations. Everything in nature follows its own intelligence. Only the human ego believes it must intervene in order for life to work. But life has been working since long before you arrived. When you finally stop trying to control it, you rediscover its innate order, and realize it was never chaotic, only misperceived. The irony is that those who surrender control gain a deeper form of mastery, not over life but over themselves. They no longer react to every external fluctuation, because they understand that true power is not in manipulation, but in alignment. When your actions flow from inner stillness rather than fear, you begin to move in harmony with existence. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying presence. The right events seem to meet you halfway, not because you forced them to, but because you finally allowed them to. The ego thrives on the illusion that it can plan the path to fulfillment. Yet the more it plans, the more it fears deviation. And fear, being magnetic, attracts the very uncertainty it tries to avoid. The moment you stop clinging to control, uncertainty loses its power to frighten you. It becomes an ally, a teacher, a mirror reflecting your readiness to evolve. Every unpredictable event becomes a message, not a threat. Psychologically, relinquishing control is the act of uniting the conscious and unconscious minds. It is the moment when the rational self acknowledges that it is not the master, but the servant of a greater intelligence within. This surrender is not weakness. It is maturity. It is the recognition that the river does not need you to tell it where to flow. You need only step into it and allow its current to carry you. In relationships, careers, ambitions, even in healing, the same law applies. The moment you loosen your grip, energy begins to circulate again. Creativity returns. Love deepens. Solutions appear not from calculation, but from intuition. You stop chasing purpose and start living it, because purpose was never something to be achieved. It was something to be revealed once you stopped resisting yourself. Letting go of control does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming receptive, open to the dialogue between your conscious will and life's deeper intelligence. It is an act of courage to trust that what is unfolding, even when painful, has meaning. Control seeks immediate comfort. Surrender seeks truth. And the truth is that everything you are trying to force into place would fall naturally where it belongs, if only you stopped interfering. So, when life refuses to bend, when your plans crumble and uncertainty floods in, pause before you tighten your grip. Ask yourself, what if this is not the universe denying me but inviting me to trust it? What if the very chaos I fear is the medicine I need? Because in the end, the moment you relinquish control is the moment life begins to reveal its deeper order. And you realize, it was never you who held the reins. It was life itself, patiently waiting for you to let go, so it could finally take you where you were meant to go all along. There comes a moment when every attempt to control, fix, and direct collapses under its own weight. You begin to see that no amount of force can bend life into harmony, and that realization, though painful, is the threshold of freedom. What follows is surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of awakening, a conscious decision to trust the unseen intelligence shaping your path. Surrender is not resignation. It is not the abandonment of responsibility or effort. It is the quiet recognition that there is an order to things, a rhythm far older and wiser than your plans. When you stop fighting that rhythm, you begin to move with it, and life, once resistant, starts to cooperate. You stop chasing and begin allowing. The shift is subtle but profound, from striving to attuning, from anxiety to awareness. This surrender demands an immense inner courage because it requires the death of control, the ego's most cherished illusion. The ego thrives on the idea that it is the master of destiny, the architect of every outcome. But the deeper psyche knows otherwise. The unconscious moves through symbols, instincts, and synchronicities, arranging reality in ways that often defy logic. When you surrender, you give that deeper intelligence permission to act. You cease to interfere with its wisdom. In psychological terms, surrender is the reconciliation between the conscious and the unconscious. It is the moment when the rational self stops dictating and starts listening. The psyche is not an enemy to be conquered, but a landscape to be explored. The more you surrender to its rhythm, the more you discover that what you feared losing was never yours to begin with. It was borrowed illusion, constructed from anxiety and habit. Many people fear surrender because they equate it with weakness, but the opposite is true. To surrender is to face life without armor, to stand undefended before the vastness of existence. It is the purest form of strength because it emerges from truth, not fear. You no longer pretend to control what you cannot, and in that honesty, you reclaim an immense power, the power of presence. This surrender also transforms the energy of desire. When you cling to desire, it becomes obsession. When you repress it, it becomes frustration. But when you surrender to it consciously, not to act it out blindly, but to feel it fully and let it move through you, it transforms. Sexual energy, the raw creative pulse of existence, begins to rise beyond instinct. It becomes a current of awareness that connects you to life itself. You stop treating desire as something to gratify and start seeing it as something to understand. That transformation cannot happen through control, only through surrender. Every spiritual and psychological tradition points to this same paradox. Only through letting go can one receive. When you surrender your rigid expectations, the field of possibility expands. When you stop grasping for certainty, intuition emerges. When you stop demanding that life meet your conditions, you begin to experience life as it truly is, alive, intelligent, responsive. This is the space where the miraculous begins, though it is not miracle in the conventional sense. It is alignment. You start to notice the pattern, how what you once chased now comes naturally, how what once terrified you loses its power, how what once felt impossible begins to unfold without effort. Surrender clears the fog from perception. The unconscious, now free from your interference, guides you toward what you were always meant to experience. The human need for control comes from a wound, the fear of powerlessness. But when you surrender, you realize that powerlessness was an illusion too. There is a greater force working through you, a current that knows your path better than your conscious mind ever could. This is not submission to fate. It is partnership with it. You become an active participant in something vast and meaningful. In this space of surrender, the energy that once went into resistance is transformed into creative force. You stop wasting yourself on fear and begin channeling that energy into growth, expression, and love. The heart opens, not because it is safe, but because it is no longer afraid. The mind quiets, not because it has all the answers, but because it no longer needs them. This is the true liberation of the soul, not escape from uncertainty, but peace within it. When you surrender, relationships change. You stop trying to mold others into reflections of your need and begin to see them as mirrors of your growth. You stop manipulating love and start embodying it. You begin to notice how everything, even loss, even rejection, carries an intelligence designed to bring you closer to yourself. What once felt like punishment now feels like initiation. Surrender also transforms the perception of time. The future no longer feels like a destination to be conquered, but a process that unfolds through your presence. You realize that the more you push for the future, the further you move from it. The moment you stop pushing, time collapses into now, and everything you once sought begins to meet you here. This kind of surrender is not a one-time act. It is a discipline, a daily choice to trust life even when it confuses you, to soften when you want to fight, to listen when you want to speak. It requires faith in something beyond reason, not blind faith, but experiential trust born from watching life prove, again and again, that it knows the way. So much of human suffering comes from the refusal to surrender, the constant resistance to what is. The moment you release that resistance, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a participant in destiny. You discover that surrender is not about giving up. It is about giving over to a wiser rhythm, a deeper order, an intelligence that has always been guiding you. There is a natural order woven into the fabric of existence, an invisible intelligence that moves through every heartbeat, every season, every birth and death, every moment of seeming chaos. Yet most people live as though this order must be manufactured, as if they must constantly pull the strings of life to keep it from falling apart. But life does not need your management. It needs your harmony. When you align with its rhythm, everything begins to find its rightful place, not through control, but through coherence. This natural order is not external. It begins within you. The outer world mirrors the architecture of your inner world. When your thoughts, emotions, and instincts are in conflict, your life reflects that dissonance. But when these forces move together in balance, life mirrors that unity back to you. What you call luck, timing, or divine coincidence is often nothing more than internal order, manifesting as external harmony. You are in essence a microcosm of the universe. The same forces that move stars through galaxies pulse within your psyche. When you are disconnected from that truth, you experience fragmentation, anxiety, confusion, restlessness. When you remember it, you rediscover flow. The mind quiets. The heart steadies. Life stops feeling like a battle and begins to feel like a dialogue. You start to notice that the world is not happening to you but with you. Most people are too distracted to perceive this natural order because they are constantly trying to impose their own. They are enslaved by the illusion that fulfillment must be achieved, that peace lies somewhere beyond the next goal, relationship, or success. But every time you chase peace, you move further from it. Peace is not something you earn. It is what remains when you stop disturbing the natural rhythm of your being. Psychologically, this is the moment when the conscious mind stops acting as a dictator and begins to serve as an interpreter. Instead of trying to dominate the unconscious, your instincts, your emotions, your desires, you begin to listen to them. You realize that every impulse carries information, every shadow carries wisdom, every longing points toward integration. The psyche, left to its own balance, knows how to heal itself. The role of consciousness is not to interfere, but to understand. When this inner alignment begins, something extraordinary happens. Your external life, relationships, opportunities, even challenges, begins to organize itself according to that new order. This is not coincidence. It is resonance. The energy you project through your inner coherence shapes the field around you. People are drawn to your presence not because of what you do, but because of what you are, centered, grounded, alive. Even the energy of desire follows this law. Sexual energy, when disconnected from awareness, seeks gratification. It scatters, consuming itself in the search for release. But when it is integrated, when it becomes a conscious current flowing through a balanced psyche, it transforms into magnetism. It ceases to be hunger and becomes attraction. This is why truly aligned individuals draw others toward them effortlessly. They no longer chase energy. They radiate it. The natural order also governs timing. There are seasons for action and seasons for rest, moments for silence and moments for expression. When you ignore this rhythm, you fall into exhaustion or stagnation. When you follow it, life seems to move in harmony with your intent. This is why forcing progress often leads to resistance, because you are trying to harvest before the seed has matured. The wise know that timing is not about waiting idly. It is about listening deeply to the rhythm of becoming. To live in alignment with this order requires humility. The ego wants to believe it can outthink the universe, that it can plan destiny down to every detail. But life laughs at rigid plans, not out of cruelty but out of mercy. It dismantles them to lead you back into rhythm. Every delay, every detour, every unexpected ending is not disorder. It is correction. It is life's way of saying, not yet, not here, not this. When you resist that correction, you suffer. When you accept it, you evolve. There is a quiet intelligence operating through everything, and when you trust it, life begins to unfold with effortless precision. You find yourself at the right place at the right time, not because you forced it, but because you followed the current. Synchronicity becomes the language of the universe, a conversation between your soul and the unseen. It is not magic. It is alignment made visible. But alignment demands awareness. You cannot flow with life if you are unconscious of your own patterns. The world outside you will always mirror what remains unresolved within you. So every conflict, every disappointment, every loss is not punishment. It is revelation. It is life showing you where your rhythm falters, where the inner order needs attention. The goal is not to escape difficulty, but to learn from it, to refine your vibration until even struggle becomes an instrument of harmony. When you begin to live this way, peace ceases to be a destination and becomes a state of being. You stop reacting to life as chaos and start responding to it as choreography. You no longer see coincidence as random, but as communication. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me about my alignment? That question alone transforms suffering into wisdom. The truth is, the universe is not against you. It never was. It only resists you when you resist yourself. When your inner world and outer world move in different directions, friction arises. But when they align, life becomes symphonic. Not because it is perfect, but because it is purposeful. So the invitation is simple. Stop trying to force the world into order. Instead, become ordered within yourself. Calm your mind, align your emotions, honor your instincts. Let your inner state become the harmony you wish to see outside. Because when you are in rhythm with life, life is in rhythm with you.